6 months after the Horizon's return, the galaxy was a very different place. The great shipyards of Earth were working day and night to build new vessels using the incredible technology that Jake Morrison and his crew had brought back. But these were not ordinary ships. They were hybrids of human engineering and dimensional science that could travel between realities as easily as sailing between planets. Commander Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of the new flagship Earth had built, USS Pioneer. The ship was beautiful in a way that took her breath away. Its hull seemed to be made of crystallized starlight, and energy flowed through it like blood through veins. Lisa had been chosen to captain this vessel, the first of Earth's new dimensional fleet. Lisa, are you ready for your first interdimensional voyage? Asked Jake Morrison as he walked onto the bridge. Jake was now Admiral Morrison, head of Earth's new dimensional defense force, but he still liked to check on his old friends personally. As ready as anyone can be for something that should be impossible, Lisa replied with a smile. The crew has been training with the ethereals for months, but actually crossing into another dimension is still hard to believe. The Pioneer's crew was a mix of humans and beings from the other dimension. Working together, they had learned to operate technology that responded to thought as much as to physical controls. It had taken time to adjust, but Lisa was amazed at how natural it felt. NOW Dr. Sarah Martinez arrived on the bridge carrying reports from the other shipyards around Earth's solar system. The Zephyrians have finished their first dimensional ship, she announced, and the Carathan Republic wants to send a delegation to learn from our new friends. This was the result that Jake had hoped for. When the Galactic Council first learned about humanity's transformation, some races had been frightened and suspicious. But as the months passed and they saw the incredible benefits of dimensional technology, more and more species wanted to join the new alliance. What about the holdouts? Lisa asked. Sarah's expression became serious. The hegemony is still refusing to work with us. They think we have become something dangerous and unnatural. There are rumors that they are building weapons designed to fight dimensional beings. The hegemony was a collection of military-minded alien races that had always believed in solving problems with force. They saw humanity's new abilities as a threat to their power and influence in the galaxy. Jake nodded grimly. We expected that. Some beings are too afraid of change to see the opportunities it brings. But we cannot let fear stop us from preparing for what is coming. As if summoned by his words, one of the ethereals appeared on the bridge. The being looked like a woman made of soft golden light, and when she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The barriers grow weaker each day, the ethereal said. The Shadow Collective is close to breaking through in several sectors. We must begin the first expedition soon. This was what they had all been working toward, the first joint expedition, beyond the dimensional barriers to help their new allies fight against the Shadow Collective. It would be dangerous, but it was necessary to protect both dimensions from the creatures that wanted to destroy them. Admiral Kate Sullivan joined them on the bridge, looking excited and nervous at the same time. Kate had volunteered to come on the first expedition, wanting to see for herself the wonders that lay beyond normal space. The fleet is ready, Kate reported. 12 ships from Earth, 6 from the Zephyrian Collective, 4 from the Carathan Republic, and 2 from the Vegan Alliance, plus our dimensional allies, of course. It was an impressive force, but Jake knew it was just the beginning. If they were successful, more ships and more species would join them. Eventually, they hoped to build an alliance strong enough to protect both dimensions from any threat. All ships, prepare for dimensional transit, Lisa announced over the fleet communication system. Around them, 24 vessels of various designs began to glow with the same energy that flowed through their hulls. It was a sight that would have been impossible to imagine just a year ago. Dr. Alex Chun, who was serving as the fleet's chief science officer, looked up from his instruments. "Admiral Morrison, we are picking up some strange readings from the hegemony fleet that has been following us." Jake was not surprised. The hegemony had been watching their preparations for weeks, probably hoping to learn their secrets, or maybe planning to interfere with the mission. "What kind of readings?" Jake asked. "They appear to be charging some kind of weapon. The energy signature is unlike anything we have seen before, but it feels hostile." Jake made a quick decision. Signal the hegemony fleet. Tell them they need to back off immediately, or they will be treated as a threat. But before the message could be sent, the hegemony ships opened fire. Beams of red energy shot across space toward the dimensional fleet. The hegemony had decided that if they could not control humanity's new power, they would try to destroy it. The attack should have been devastating, but something amazing happened instead. The dimensional ship's energy fields simply absorbed the thin, hostile fire like sponges soaking up water. The weapons that should have destroyed them only made them glow brighter. "Fascinating," said Sarah Martinez. "The dimensional fields are converting their attack energy into power for our own systems." One of the Voidwalkers, a being that looked like a moving shadow filled with stars, appeared beside Jake. "Shall we respond?" the creature asked in a voice like distant thunder. Jake thought for a moment. The hegemony had attacked first, but he did not want to start a war if it could be avoided. Show them what they are up against, but do not hurt them. The Voidwalker nodded and gestured toward the hegemony fleet. Suddenly, all of their ships lost power simultaneously. Not destroyed, not damaged, but simply turned off like someone had flipped a switch. The hegemony vessels drifted helplessly. In space, their crews probably wondering what had just happened to them. "I think they get the message," Lisa said with a slight smile. Jake nodded and turned his attention back to the mission ahead. All ships resumed dimensional transit preparations. It is time to go beyond the barriers and see what wonders await us on the other side. Space began to bend and twist around the fleet as they prepared to leave their own dimension behind. The ships that had once been impossible were about to undertake a journey that would have been unthinkable just 11 years ago, when the horizon first disappeared into the unknown dot as the dimensional portal opened before them. Jake thought about how much had changed since that day. Humanity had gone from being one of the youngest races in the galaxy to being teachers and protectors of knowledge that could reshape reality itself. The fleet moved forward into the swirling energy of the dimensional barrier, leaving their own universe behind to explore realms where thought became reality and the impossible became every day. Behind them, they left a galaxy that would never be the same again. And in the distance, the powerless hegemony ships slowly began to regain their systems, their crews finally understanding that the universe had grown much larger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. Some would learn from this lesson and seek to join the new alliance. Others would continue to resist change until it was too late, but that was a story for another day. For now, humanity and its allies sailed into the infinite possibilities of the dimensional beyond, ready to face whatever challenges and wonders awaited them in the space between spaces, where the Horizon's crew had learned that the only limits were those they placed on themselves. 3 days after the Horizon's return, representatives from every major alien race in the galaxy had arrived at Earth. The Galactic Council Chamber on Luna Station was packed with beings who had come to see what the humans had brought back from their long journey. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the chamber wearing a uniform that seemed to be made of the same glowing material as his ship. He looked calm and confident, but everyone in the room could feel the power that surrounded him. The man who had left Earth 11 years ago as an explorer had returned as something much more. Commander Lisa Parker sat in the front row, still amazed that her old friend was alive. She had been right all along. The crew had not been destroyed, but taken somewhere else. But even she was not prepared for how much Jake and his people had changed. "Members of the Galactic Council," Jake began, his voice carrying easily through the large chamber. 11 years ago, my ship was pulled into what we now know was a dimensional barrier. We found ourselves in a place where the laws of physics work differently, where space and time can be shaped like clay in the hands of an artist. The alien delegates listened with growing amazement as Jake described the world they had found beyond the dimensional barrier. It was a place inhabited by beings who had learned to live in harmony with the fundamental forces of the universe. "We call them the Ethereals and the Voidwalkers," Jake continued. "They are civilizations that evolved beyond the need for solid matter. They exist as patterns of energy and thought, able to create technology that works with the universe instead of against it." Commander Zeltar of the Zephyrian Science Fleet leaned forward in his seat. The Zephyrians had been the most advanced race in the galaxy for thousands of years. But what Jake was describing was beyond anything they had achieved. "Captain Morrison," Zeltar said, "are you claiming that you learned this impossible technology in just 11 years? Jake smiled. Time moves differently in the dimension beyond the barrier. What felt like 11 years to us was actually much longer in terms of learning and growth. Our new friends were patient teachers, and we proved to be quick students. As if to demonstrate his point, Jake held up his hand. The air around his fingers began to glow, and suddenly a perfect three-dimensional image appeared floating above his palm. The image showed the Earth and its solar system, but it was alive and moving, showing the real positions of all the planets and ships in real time. The alien delegates gasped in amazement. Creating solid holograms from nothing but willpower was theoretically possible, but no one had ever actually done it. Dr. Sarah Martinez, who had been the Horizon's chief science officer, stood up beside Jake. She was also wearing the strange glowing uniform, and like Jake, she seemed to radiate an inner light. "We learned that the universe has many layers," Sarah explained. "Most of us live in what we call the material layer, but there are energy layers above it where consciousness and matter are the same thing. Our friends taught us how to reach into those layers and bring back what we need." She gestured toward the chamber's main display screen, and suddenly it came, alive with images that had not been there before. The pictures showed the horizon during its 11 years away, but not the horizon as it had been. The images showed the ship growing and changing, becoming something wonderful and strange. "We did not just learn their technology," Sarah continued. "We became part of it. Every member of our crew can now interface directly with matter and energy. We can shape metal with our thoughts, travel between dimensions at will, and communicate across impossible distances." The implications of what she was saying hit the alien delegates like a physical blow. If humans could really do these things, then the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted completely. Admiral Kate Sullivan, who was representing Earth in the council meeting, raised her hand to speak. "Jake, Sarah, this is all incredible, but why are you telling us this? What do you need from us?" Jake's expression became serious. "Because we are not the only ones who can travel between dimensions. Our friends beyond the barrier are in a war with beings they call the Shadow Collective, creatures that exist only to consume and destroy. The Shadow Collective has been trying to break through into our dimension for millions of years, and they are getting closer to success." The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed this information. A war between dimensional beings was beyond anything they had ever imagined. "The good news," Jake continued, "is that our friends have been holding them back. The bad news is that the barriers between dimensions are weakening. Eventually, the Shadow Collective will break through, and when they do, every living thing in our galaxy will be in danger." Commander Zeltar spoke up again. "What can we do against beings that exist in other dimensions?" "We can learn," Jake replied. "We can evolve. We can become more than we are now. Our friends are willing to teach anyone who is ready to learn, but the process is not easy. It requires giving up old ideas about what is possible and embracing a new way of thinking about reality. To demonstrate, Jake gestured toward the chamber's walls. Suddenly, the solid metal began to flow like water, reshaping itself into beautiful patterns that seemed to tell the story of the Horizon's journey. The alien delegates watched in stunned silence as the walls became a living work of art. "This is what we offer," Jake said. "Not just new technology, but a new way of existing. The universe is much stranger and more wonderful than any of us realized, and we have only begun to explore its possibilities." Dr. Alex Chun, who had been monitoring the meeting from Earth, stood up to ask a question. "Captain Morrison, you mentioned that your crew has grown from 200 to 800. Who are the new crew members?" Jake smiled and gestured toward the back of the chamber. The air there began to shimmer, and suddenly beings of pure light appeared, the ethereals and voidwalkers that Jake had mentioned. They looked like human-shaped patterns of energy, beautiful and strange. "These are our friends and teachers," Jake said. "They have come to help us prepare for what is coming. The Shadow Collective cannot be fought with traditional weapons or ships. They can only be stopped by beings who understand the true nature of reality." The alien delegates stared at the energy beings in wonder and fear. Some of them were beginning to understand that the galaxy they thought they knew had just become a much more dangerous and exciting place. Admiral Kate Sullivan looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from dozens of different worlds, all trying to process what they had just learned. Humanity had returned from its long journey not as the same species that had left, but as something new and powerful. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready to join them in becoming something greater than they had ever imagined possible. The first sign that something incredible was about to happen came from the deep space monitoring stations around Earth's solar system. Sensors that had been quiet for years suddenly came alive with readings that made no sense to anyone watching them. Lieutenant Sam Rogers was on duty at the Pluto station when his screens lit up with warnings. "Control, this is Pluto station. I am seeing massive energy signatures moving toward the inner system. The readings are off the charts." Back on Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan was in the command center when the reports started coming in. Kate had been promoted to head of Earth's deep space operations after the Horizon disappeared, and she had spent 11 years making sure that nothing like that could happen again to a human ship. "How massive are we talking about?" Kate asked over the communication link. "Ma'am, whatever is coming our way is putting out more energy than our biggest space stations. And it is moving fast, faster than anything we have on record." Kate felt a chill run down her back. In 11 years, no alien race had ever approached Earth with this kind of power. Most aliens still thought humans were too young and weak to be a real threat or ally. If someone was coming to Earth with this much energy, it could only mean trouble. "Red alert across the system," Kate ordered. "Get every ship we have ready for battle. Contact the Zephyrians and ask if this is one of their ships." But even as she gave the orders, Kate knew this was not a normal alien ship. The energy readings were unlike anything in the galactic database. Whatever was coming toward Earth was completely unknown. On Luna Station, Commander Lisa Parker was working late when the alarm started going off. She had been studying the latest reports about strange energy readings from across the galaxy when her computer suddenly displayed an emergency message. "All senior officers report to command immediately. Possible hostile contact approaching Earth system." Lisa's heart started beating faster as she ran to the command center. When she arrived, she saw dozens of officers looking at displays showing the approaching energy signature. The unknown contact was still far away, but it was moving toward Earth at incredible speed. "What do we know about it?" Lisa asked Captain Roy Martinez. Not much. It is big, it is powerful, and it is definitely heading for Earth. The energy signature does not match anything we have seen before. Lisa looked at the readings on the screen and felt something familiar about them. The energy patterns reminded her of something, but she could not figure out what, and it hit her like lightning. Roy, show me the energy readings from the Horizon's disappearance. Lisa, this is not the time to just do it, please. Roy brought up the old files on his screen, and Lisa compared them to the readings from the approaching contact. They were not exactly the same, but they were similar, very similar. Oh my God, Lisa whispered. Roy, what if it is them? What if it is the Horizon coming home? Meanwhile, far out in space, the USS Horizon was indeed coming home. But it was not the same ship that had left Earth 11 years ago. The vessel that now moved through space looked like something from a dream or a nightmare, depending on your point of view. The hull of the ship glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from within the metal itself. Strange patterns flowed across the surface like living things, and around the ship was a field of energy that bent light and space in impossible ways. On the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison looked out at the familiar stars of his home system. He was 53 years old now, and his hair was gray, but his eyes were bright with excitement and wisdom gained from 11 years of incredible experiences. Amy, send a message to Earth Command, Jake said to his first officer. Tell them the Horizon is coming home. Lieutenant Amy Davis, now older and more experienced, worked at her station to send the message. But she knew it would be hard for Earth to believe. The ship they were in was so different from the one that had left that even she sometimes could not believe what had happened to them. Message sent, Captain. But, sir, are you sure they will recognize us? Jake smiled. We will find out soon enough. Message traveled through space at the speed of light, but the Horizon was moving much faster than that, using technologies they had learned in the other dimension. The ship would arrive at Earth long before the message did. On Earth, the defense fleets were moving into position around the planet. Admiral Kate Sullivan had never seen anything like the approaching energy signature, and she was not taking any chances. Every human ship in the system was armed and ready for battle. But as the unknown contact got closer, the sensors began to pick up something that made Kate's heart stop. Mixed in with the alien energy signatures were human communication codes. Codes that had not been used for 11 years. Ma'am, said her communication officer, I am picking up fragments of human transmissions from the contact. The codes are old, from the Horizon era. Kate stared at the readings in disbelief. Are you saying that thing is the Horizon? I do not know, ma'am, but the codes are definitely human. At that moment, space in front of Earth began to bend and twist just like it had near the Veil Nebula 11 years ago. But this time, instead of something being pulled into the distortion, something was coming out of it. The USS Horizon emerged from the dimensional fold like a whale rising from the ocean depths. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, glowing with energy that made the space around it shimmer like water. Every sensor in the Earth system was focused on the returning ship, and what they saw amazed everyone who looked at the readings. The Horizon was 3 times larger than when it had left, and it was putting out enough energy to power an entire planet. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Horizon requesting permission to approach Earth, came a voice over the communication. Channels. The voice was older and more confident than it had been 11 years ago, but it was definitely Jake. Admiral Kate Sullivan stared at the communication panel in shock. After 11 years, Jake Morrison was talking to her again. The crew of the Horizon was alive and coming home. Jake, is that really you? Kate asked, her voice shaking with emotion. Hello, Kate. Yes, it is me. We have been gone a long time, but we are home now, and we have brought some friends. As if to prove his point, smaller ships began emerging from the space around the horizon. These vessels were even stranger than the main ship, looking like they were made of light and energy, rather than metal. The beings flying them were not human, but they moved in formation with the horizon like old friends. Kate realized that the crew of the horizon had not just survived their 11 years in wherever they had thrived. And now they were back, bringing with them technology and allies that could change everything for humanity. "Permission granted, Horizon," Kate said. "Welcome home." Commander Lisa Parker sat in her office on Earth's Luna Station and stared at the same reports she had read 1,000 times before. 11 years had passed since the USS Horizon disappeared near the Veil Nebula, but she refused to give up hope. That her friends were still alive, somewhere. The official report said the ship was destroyed. The search teams found nothing but empty space where the Horizon should have been. After 2 years of looking, Earth Command declared Captain Jake Morrison and his crew of 200 dead. The families held memorial services. The galaxy moved on, but Lisa knew something was wrong with that story. She had been supposed to go on that mission as Jake's second officer, but at the last minute she was reassigned to Luna Station. Sometimes she wondered if that assignment had saved her life, or if she could have helped her friends. If she had been there, the data from the Horizon's last transmission was still on her computer screen. Most people looked at it and saw nothing but random numbers and energy readings. But Lisa was good at finding patterns, and she was sure there was something hidden in those final seconds of communication. "Still looking at that old data?" asked Captain Roy Martinez as he walked into her office. Roy was her commanding officer now, a good man who had tried many times to get her to stop wasting her time on the Horizon case. "There is something here, Roy." "I know it," Lisa said, pointing at her screen. "Look at these energy readings. They are not random. There is a pattern." Roy looked tired. They had talked about this many times before. "Lisa, it has been 11 years. The best scientists in the fleet looked at that data. If there was something to find, they would have found it." But Lisa was not listening. She had just noticed something new in the numbers. The energy readings were not just a pattern. They were coordinates. Not coordinates for normal space, but for something else entirely. "Roy, what if they were not destroyed? What if they were taken somewhere?" "Taken where?" Lisa pointed at the numbers on her screen. "Somewhere else. Another dimension, maybe. Look at these readings. They match the theoretical work that Dr. Helen Brooks was doing before she died." Dr. Brooks had been Earth's leading expert on dimensional physics. She believed that space had layers, like an onion, and that it might be possible to travel between these layers. Most scientists thought her ideas were impossible, but Lisa remembered reading her papers years ago. Roy sat down and looked more carefully at Lisa's screen. He was quiet for a long time, thinking about what she had shown him. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, strange things were starting to happen. On the edge of Zephyrian space, monitoring stations were picking up energy readings that made no sense. The Zephyrians had been exploring space for thousands of years, but they had never seen anything like this. Commander Zeltar of the Zephyrian Science Fleet looked at the reports coming in from 12 different stations. All of them showed the same thing: massive bursts of energy that seemed to come from nowhere and then disappear again. The energy was so powerful that it was bending space itself. "How many ships do we have in that area?" Zeltar asked his aide. 3 patrol ships and 1 research vessel, Commander. "Should we send them to investigate?" Zeltar thought about this. The energy readings were unlike anything in their database. They were powerful enough to destroy planets if they were weapons, but they did not behave like weapons. They seemed almost like signals of some kind. "Yes, but tell them to keep their distance. If something that powerful is moving around out, There, we need to know what it is. Back on Luna Station, Lisa was getting excited. She had been running the Horizon's final transmission through new analysis programs, and the results were amazing. Hidden in the static and interference were fragments of human speech, so broken up that the original search teams had missed them. Roy. Listen to this, she said, playing a cleaned-up audio file. The voice was faint and full of static, but it was definitely human. ... Dimensional shift, ... Not destroyed, ... Will return, ... Roy's eyes went wide. Is that Jake's voice? I think so. And there is more. Lisa played another file. ... Learned so much, ... Changed everything, ... Coming home. The two officers looked at each other in amazement. If these voice fragments were real, then the crew of the Horizon might still be alive. But where had they been for 11 years? And what did they mean when they said they had learned so much? On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Alex Chun was working late in his laboratory on Titan Research Station. Alex was one of Earth's brightest physicists, and he was trying to solve the problem of faster-than-light travel. Humans could travel between stars, but it took months or years to get anywhere. The older alien races had better technology, but they would not share it. Alex was looking at his latest test results when something caught his attention. His experimental engines were picking up energy traces that should not exist. The readings looked like the theoretical signatures for dimensional manipulation, but that technology was supposed to be impossible. Computer, run analysis on energy. Trace 77 Alpha, Alex said. The computer's voice filled the lab. Energy trace shows characteristics of multidimensional space folding. This technology is beyond current human capability. Alex sat back in his chair and thought about this. Someone or something was using dimensional technology near Earth's solar system. The readings were faint, like they were coming from very far away, but they were definitely there. He opened a communication link to Earth Command. This is Dr. Chun. On Titan Station. I need to speak with someone about possible alien activity in our system. But what Alex did not know was that the energy traces were not from aliens. They were from humans. Humans who had spent 11 years learning things that would change everything. Far across the galaxy. The crew of the USS Horizon was preparing for their long journey home. They had learned incredible things during their time in the other dimension, and they had made friends with beings that most humans could not even imagine. But now it was time to return to their own universe and share what they had learned. Captain Jake Morrison looked older than his 53 years, but his eyes were bright with excitement. In a few days, they would begin their trip home to Earth. The Horizon was no longer the same ship that had disappeared 11 years ago. It had been changed, improved, and made into something wonderful and powerful. Are the new crew members ready for the journey? Jake asked Lieutenant Amy Davis, who was now his first officer. Yes, sir. The Ethereals and the Voidwalkers are all prepared for dimensional travel. They are excited to meet the people of Earth. Jake nodded. The beings they had met in the other dimension had become their friends and teachers. Some of them were coming back to Earth to help humanity understand the new technologies they had learned. Good. Signal Earth Command. Tell them we are coming home. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and looked out at the stars. The ship was moving toward the Veil Nebula, a place where no human had ever gone before. His crew of 200 people worked quietly around him, checking systems and preparing for what could be the most important mission in human history. Captain, we are getting close to the meeting point, said his second officer, Lieutenant Amy Davis. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her completely. The crew had been traveling for 3 weeks to reach this distant part of space where they would meet with the Zephyrian Collective. The Zephyrians were one of the oldest and smartest races in the galaxy. They had technology that humans could only dream about. If Earth could make friends with them, it would change everything for humanity. No more being treated like children by the other alien races. No more being told they were too young and too dangerous to explore the far reaches of space. Jake had worked his whole life for this moment. He grew up on Earth, dreaming of the stars, and now at 42 years old, he was leading humanity's most important diplomatic mission. His wife Carol and their 2 children were back on Earth, waiting for him to return with good news. "Sir, we are getting strange readings from the nebula ahead," called out Dr. Ben Parker from the science station. He was frowning at his screens, pushing buttons to get better data. "The energy patterns are not like anything we have seen before." Jake walked over to look at the readings. The numbers on the screen made no sense to him, but Ben was the best scientist on the ship. If he was worried, then Jake should be worried too. Could it be Zephyrian technology? Jake asked. Maybe, but this looks different. Much stronger, and it seems to be moving toward us. The ship's communication officer, Lisa Martinez, suddenly looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, I am getting a message from the Zephyrians. They say they never asked us to meet. Them at these coordinates." Jake felt his stomach drop. If the Zephyrians had not sent the message, then who had? And why had they brought his ship and crew all the way out here to the edge of known space? "Red alert," Jake ordered. The lights on the bridge changed to red, and warning sounds filled the air. All over the ship, his crew would be running to their battle stations. "Amy, get us ready to jump back to Earth space if we need to." "Yes, sir." Charging the jump drive now. But before Amy could finish her work, something incredible happened. The space in front of them began to twist and bend like water. Stars stretched and moved in ways that should have been impossible. A bright light began to grow in the center of the distortion, getting brighter and brighter until everyone on the bridge had to look away. "What is happening?" Jake shouted over the noise that was now coming from the ship's hull. It sounded like metal being pulled apart. "The sensors are going crazy," Ben called back. "Whatever this is, it is pulling us toward it. The engines cannot fight it." Jake grabbed his chair as the ship began to shake. Through the main window, he could see that space itself was falling apart around them. The stars were disappearing one by one, being swallowed by the growing light. "Emergency jump now," Jake ordered. "I am trying, but the jump drive is not working." "Something is blocking it," Amy said, her voice full of fear. The horizon was being pulled faster and faster toward the strange light. Jake had been in dangerous situations before, but nothing like this. His ship, his crew, and possibly the future of humanity were all in his hands, and there was nothing he could do to save them. "All hands, prepare for impact," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Hold on to something solid." But there was no impact. Instead, the ship simply slipped into the light like diving into a warm ocean. The shaking stopped. A noise stopped. For a moment, everything was perfectly quiet and still. Then the light faded, and Jake saw something that made his heart stop. Outside the ship was not the black space full of stars that he knew. Instead, there was a sky full of colors that had no names, with strange shapes floating in the distance that looked like buildings or maybe mountains. Below them was not empty space, but what looked like solid ground covered in plants that glowed with their own light. "Where are we?" whispered Amy. Jake stared out at this impossible world and realized that everything had changed. They were not in their own universe anymore. The horizon and everyone on it had been pulled into somewhere completely different. Somewhere that the laws of physics as humans understood them did not seem to work. "I do not know," Jake said quietly, "but we need to figure out how to get home." What he did not know was that it would take 11 years to find the answer to that question. And when they finally did return to their own universe, they would bring with them knowledge and power that would shake the entire galaxy.